As the shadow of global instability reaches a fever pitch, the African continent is witnessing a seismic shift in the balance of power that has left Western intelligence agencies in a state of absolute shock. New reports indicate that 2025 was the deadliest year on record for the continent, with terrorism-related fatalities skyrocketing by 24% to a staggering 24,000 deaths. As these extremist groups bleed across porous borders and explode all colonial divide, a massive wave of 23 African nations is now reportedly looking toward the Alliance of Sahel States, or the AES, as their last hope for survival. This surge in interest marks a total rejection of traditional Western security models that have failed to stop the fire from spreading. Good day, you're watching The Global Observer, and I want you to stay right there. Our lead story today examines the rapid expansion of the Sahel security model and why nearly 24 nations are now knocking on the door of the AES to escape the chaos that is swallowing the continent. The data coming out of the Sahel is nothing short of a wake-up call to the world. This narrow belt of land on the edge of the Sahara has become the global epicenter of violence. Last year alone, over 50% of all global terrorism deaths happened right here. In countries like Burkina Faso, the situation has become a test of human will. Militant groups like JNIM, who are linked to Al-Qaeda, have grown with terrifying speed. They aren't just small bands of fighters anymore. They are like a massive corporate machine that controls trade routes and taxes local people. They have become so powerful that they now claim responsibility for nearly 80% of the violence in the region. They are moving like a tidal wave, and for many neighboring countries, the current defense system are like trying to stop the ocean with a plastic bucket. This wave of terror is no longer staying inside the Sahel. It is moving south towards the coastal states. For a long time, countries like Benin were known as the most peaceful places in Africa, but the peace has been shattered. Just recently, a brutal attack on a military outpost near the Niger border left 15 soldiers dead. JNIM even named a regional leader for Benin, signaling that they plan to stay. Even Nigeria, the most populous nation on the continent, is feeling the heat. Fatalities in the Lake Chad Basin jumped by 28% last year. While the Nigerian government has worked hard to fight groups like Boko Haram, new threats linked to the Sahel are popping up like wildfire in a dry forest. This rapid expansion is what is driving those 23 nations to seek a new way out. The traditional answer to this problem has always been Western intervention, but the people of the Sahel have seen the result of that. For years, the US and Europe poured billions into military training and drone bases, yet violence only got worse. Let's take it to the medical field. It is like a doctor giving a patient the same medicine for 10 years while the patient gets sicker, every day. Eventually, the patient is going to look for a different doctor. This is exactly what is happening with the AES. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have decided to take the gun themselves. They have kicked out foreign troops and turned to partners like Russia, who offer a more direct, no-strings-attached military approach. This Malian model is now the most popular script on the continent because promises one thing the West has failed to deliver, which is sovereignty. In Somalia, the situation is even more intense. That's links to Al-Shabaab and ISIS affiliates increased by a massive 93% last year. The capital, Mogadishu, is constantly under threat. Interestingly, this is one of the few places where American and Russian interests actually seem to align. Both powers want to keep the Bab el-Mandeb waterway safe for global trade, but even with US air strikes and Russian support, the extremist networks continue to exploit high youth unemployment and weak local governments. The terrorists are offering jobs and a sense of belonging to young people who have nothing. This is the poison fruit of governance failure. The AES nations are arguing that the only way to kill this fruit is to pull the tree up by its roots and build a system that belongs to the African people, not the foreign donors. The shift towards the AES is not just about military hardware, dear viewers. It is about identity. In Burkina Faso, for example, the local volunteer forces, known as the VDP, are incredibly diverse. You have Muslims, Christians, and animists all fighting side by side. They respect respect each other's prayer times and traditions. This is a level of social unity that foreign armies can never create. It is an African solution to an African problem. I bet you waited for this long ago. The 23 nations requesting to join a partner with the AES see this unity as a shield. They are tired of being told that they need a military solution from Washington or Paris. They want a solution that comes from the heart of the continent. For policymakers in Europe and the US, the clock is ticking. The windows to contain this violence is closing fast. As these terrorist networks expand, they are changing migration flow and trade routes that affect the entire globe. If the Sahel falls, the impact will be felt in the streets of London and the port of New York. But instead of seeing this as a call for more firm boots on the ground, the AES is showing that the only way to win is to empower local forces. They are creating a new architecture of security. This model treats borders not as line on a map drawn by colonization, but as a shared space that must be protected by brothers. The request from these 23 nations is a clear signal that the old order is crumbling. The world is watching a massive geopolitical default. Africa is breaking up with the West security complex and moving in with a more assertive, sovereign-focused alliance. The rise of the AES is proof that the continent is no longer content to be a theater for other people's wars. They are taking control of the battlefield, and most importantly, they are taking control of their future. The 24,000 lives lost in 2025 will not be forgotten. They are the fuel for a new African resistance that is just getting started. I want you to keep watching the Global Observer for more insights. Stay right there.